Hey everyone, welcome to Coast Watch Football. My name is Lockie, and here is the round 10 review of the A-League men's, the two A-League men's games that went ahead this weekend in round 10. And some very entertaining clashes again. Only two games going ahead. It's sort of that's what we're used to at the moment. I think this is now 4 consecutive weeks where we've only had a maximum of 2 games go ahead in the A-League men's competition. I think what was it? The last week we had 2. The previous week we had 1. But we've had some entertaining games. We spoke. I spoke last week about how last week's 2 games were maybe the most entertaining round of the season, and this week was very entertaining as well. And some really interesting talking points coming out of the 2 games. Both, of course, played at the same time. That's just purely coincidence that only those 2 games went ahead. Of course, so many teams still out of action, and of course, I should touch on, of course, the F3 Derby, which was called off barely 24 hours beforehand. So devastated because it had been so long since my Central Coast Mariners played a game, man. And I was so looking forward to that game, but unfortunately that one got called off due to some cases in the Newcastle Jets camp. So my Mariners were looking ahead to the semi-final on Tuesday night, and I'll let you guys know right now, I'm going to be doing a live watch-along for the semi-final on Tuesday night. Mariners up against Sydney FC. I can't wait. It's my first ever watch-along I'm doing for a Mariners game, because usually I'm at the games. So I'm going to be doing a live watch-along here on YouTube. When is it? Tuesday night. And yeah, dude, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I see you guys in the chat. Josh is here, Dillstar, Alex, Darren, Kraz Dog is here as well. Hope you guys are having a good weekend so far. And let's talk about the A-League action right now. We're going to talk about, first of all, Adelaide, Melbourne City. Now, I chose to watch this game out of the 2 games that were happening live, and I watched the Sydney game afterwards on replay. Heading into this one, obviously, we've seen this matchup happen already this season, round 2. That ended in a 2-2 draw. City gaining a 2-goal lead, and Adelaide coming back late to draw it 2-2. So heading into this one, in terms of my prediction, I was quite unsure in terms of how this one would have panned out. City coming off the back of that epic 3-3 draw with Wanderers and have just been a little bit off the pace so far this season. We're knocked out of the cup by Wellington Phoenix. And Adelaide United, again, have been quite up and down. They defeated Phoenix 4-0 in the A-League the week before. 2 weeks before, actually, and managed to get a draw against Melbourne Victory, which was an impressive result as well, but haven't been up to scratch as well this season. In terms of lineups heading into this game, of course, some key personnel missing for both sides. No Curtis Good still for Melbourne City. No Isaias, who was out through with suspension. For Adelaide, I point out now, of course, we saw the 2 new guys involved. Well, 1 new guy, 1 returning guy. Lachlan Brook back in the Adelaide United side, came off the bench. Didn't have too much of an impact. But Hiroshi Ibusuki, we'll touch on him in just a second as well, because he got the crucial goal in the end. Very entertaining game overall. First half was pretty balanced. Adelaide creating good chances early on. Melbourne City probably starting to control things for the second portion of that first half, I thought. And that's where the goal did come. It was Andrew Naboot, who's sort of established a bit of a rivalry, as a bit of a battle of banter between Andrew Naboot and the Adelaide United fans. But of course, 24th minute opening the scoring, and from there they took the 1-0 lead into the halftime sheds. And of course, I mean, regardless of what the scoreline is, when you're playing in Adelaide, anything can happen because they're so good at coming from behind, and they did come from behind. They did make an impact in the end. Craig Goodwin was leading things really well for Adelaide United. Bernardo was heavily involved. Stefan Mork, I thought, played pretty well this game. One Day in midfield, special mention to One Day, who I spoke about heading into this game in the preview video the other day, that there was going to be more expectation on One Day's shoulders as defensive midfielder for Adelaide United without his usual Spaniard partner in Isaias. He wasn't there. So One Day really stepped up and contained, because it's a very creative and offensive City midfield that they have. So he was able to contain that midfield really, really well. It was George Blackwood who was having a bit of a shaky game up until the hour mark, where he did grab that goal. Tom Glover. Defensive mistake for Tom Glover. Should have done better there. Easy tap in for George Blackwood, who's now grabbed a couple goals. And again, he's still not proven himself as sort of the lead striker for Adelaide United. That might not be a question anymore now, considering they've brought in Ibusuki. But only a few minutes later, Jamie McLaren, 66th minute, restoring the lead for Melbourne City. Jamie McLaren always knows how to find the back of the net. And again, I should mention Matthew Leckie. I think he assisted both goals in this game. And I don't know whether Matt Leckie was listening to the videos from last week, in the preview video, in the watch along. I did a watch along last week for the City Wanderers game. What did you guys make of Matt Leckie in this game? Because he stepped up big time. In every game so far, he's looked very lackluster. Like, he hasn't been terrible every game, but you just expect more from him. And this game, he stepped it up another level, especially in that first half. Was looking really, really dangerous. Got the assist for the Naboot goal with a fantastic cross into the box, into a very dangerous area, and teed up the cross again for the second goal, for Jamie McLaren's goal. So from there, it was quite interesting because, again, as I mentioned, even though City had the lead there, wasn't guaranteed. And it was even more questionable a few minutes later when Nuno Reis was sent off, his second yellow card. And it was a silly foul in the end from Nuno Reis, who tugged down, I believe it was George Blackwood who went down for that penalty in around that 70th minute. And from there, I mean, that was going to change the game, because when Melbourne City lost that player, it sort of shifted their system. They only had two players in midfield. Aidan O'Neill had to sit back in their centre of defence. And, of course, the resulting penalty, saved by Tom Glover. It wasn't a convincing penalty in the end from Craig Goodwin. He has slotted a number of penalties away so far this season. And but this one, man, just Tom Glover, he just made it easy for him. It was an easy save in the end. But it didn't matter in the end, because Ibusuki came off the bench. Lachlan Brook came off the bench as well. These new guys arrived and were thrown straight into the deep end. And first of all, Hiroshi Ibusuki, I mean, we heard he was tall. He looked like an absolute giant, especially standing alongside, I mean, if you see him alongside Joey Coletti or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, he's massive. So that's going to be a really interesting thing. He's going to add a different dimension to the Adelaide United attack. He's going to be a focal point up the top. And we didn't see much of him. He wasn't really involved in too much play, but he did score the goal, 84th minute, to grab the equaliser. Fantastic little, it was a scrappy goal, actually, I should say, just off that corner, and managed to tap it home. But fantastic stuff for him to make an instant impact. We've got some comments in the chat here. Little Piglet says, I'm a Victory fan, but I don't think it was a red, but it was a pen. Well, it was definitely a second yellow. It was definitely a second yellow. Yeah, definitely not a red, but yeah, definitely a second yellow card. And by that stage, 3 of City's back 4 were on yellow cards. Galloway, Jamison, and Nuno Reis, all on yellows. And it was really silly from Nuno Reis. And it was a blatant penalty, and it was a blatant yellow card. So I don't think there's any arguing that at all, hey. Little Piglet is also saying Sydney are bad this season. We'll touch on Sydney in just a second. Chuckmane asks an interesting question. Do you think Ibusuki is the man Adelaide need up front? I think time will tell whether he's really going to be a success story in the A-League. It's so hard to say. But I'm optimistic. If I was an Adelaide fan, I'm optimistic that he doesn't necessarily have to bang in 15, 20 goals by the end of the season. He just has to be a focal point for them and be an avenue to set up the other guys like Ben Halloran, like Bernardo Oliveira. Iran Kunda, the young guy, 15 years of age, came off the bench, was fantastic. If Hiroshi Ibusuki can set up those guys, hold up the ball, play it on for those guys, Adelaide are going to score goals this season, and that could be an avenue for them. So very interested to see how that pans out. And then, it's going to be, again, another interesting thing is like when Cassini Yengi comes back from injury, which, I mean, I'm not sure what that exact timeline is. It might be later on in the season. As well, George Blackwood, whether he'll just get demoted to the bench. How do those guys fit in? Moture as well. So they've now got a multitude of strikers. But Ibusuki, I mean, I can see him with his height and his physicality. He'll be the man up front. So this game ending 2-2. It was quite tense at the end. Obviously, City had to sit back. They were down the man. Adelaide probably wished they could have, definitely wished they would have gotten the winner. Did they deserve it? Maybe. It was a tight game in the end. When we look at the stats, 19 shots for the Reds, 12 to Melbourne City. In the end, Adelaide did have more possession, 56%, but that was probably due to that red card. Melbourne City playing with only 10 men for the final 20 minutes. So, an interesting game. A very, very fascinating game, this one. So let's talk about let's shuffle on right now and talk about the Sydney-Brisbane game right now. Drop in your comments. I've already sent some comments about it here in the live chat. And we've got some interesting takes in here. Krasdog says, Brisbane Roar deserved it more, deserved the draw more. Look, heading into this game, of course, we sort of had a little bit of an expectation of what to expect. Due to the fact that these guys played a few days previously in the FFA Cup quarterfinals, Sydney FC picking up a 1-0 win, where both teams weren't at their best, but both teams weren't poor by any means. It was Brisbane's first game back for a long time, and this was Brisbane's first A-League men's game for like over a month. It was crazy. So seeing them back in action, and it was very interesting sort of seeing how two teams were facing up against each other again, having just faced each other a few days before. Brisbane were playing the exact same lineup, that same sort of 4-4-2 formation, which maybe looks like what Warren Moon's going to play for at least the foreseeable future. Looks like the back three is something of the past for Warren Moon and Brisbane Roar. And for Sydney FC, some changes, a bit more of a stronger lineup. Ninkovic returning to that starting lineup, and as well, of course, the likes of Cam Sober, who started. And I mean, first of all, I'll just touch on Elvis Cam Sober. How good was he? I was super impressed with him. He got the goal for he didn't get the goal for Sydney FC, but he teed up the goal for Anthony Caceres. He created that goal. It was basically his goal. It was Anthony Caceres who tapped it away. But he's been a revelation this season, and he's just getting better and better at Sydney FC. And again, I mean, the reason why we have to talk about it and why it's such a big deal is because of how mediocre he was at Melbourne Victory. Like he always showed promise, and he seemed like an exciting player, but he never is finished. The final product wasn't there. You know what I mean? So Elvis Cam Sober is stepping up in the Sydney FC formation, and what I think we have to point out as well is he's playing quite a different role. Melbourne Victory is predominantly, I guess, played as a winger, as a wide player, and now he's playing as one of the number 9s, and I think he's relishing that role. He doesn't have as much defensive responsibility, playing as one of those number 9s, obviously. And his ability to take on defenders, if you look at that Sydney FC's goal, his fearlessness and the way he got past defenders, and that pass to Plain Caceres, that I don't think he would have played that pass, 12 months ago, 2 years ago. He didn't have that aspect of his game really polished. Like that pass might have gotten cut off, or he might have played it too heavy. Like it might have gone too heavy for Caceres, but it was perfectly weighted for Caceres, just past the defender, and it was a nice finish in the end there from Anthony Caceres. So it wasn't the end though. Of course, 6 minutes later, Nikola Miljuznic grabbing the goal for Brisbane Roar. His first goal for the Roar, his first goal for his new side. And yeah, man, Nikola Miljuznic is a player who, again, big expectation. We know how good he is. He tore it up at Adelaide United a couple of years ago. Fantastic play for them. Returned back to the A-League and scored a really nice goal. Brisbane Roar in this game is very interesting because they actually look good for a lot of passages of the game. And across both games, the FFA Cup game and this game, defensively, they've actually been pretty good. They've been pretty strong, apart from when Scott Neville almost put the ball in the back of his net. Macklin Freak, good reflexes from him. But I've been very impressed with their structure, and I think this 4-4-2 setup is probably helping with that. It's meaning they're not getting exposed as much. There's a bit more organisation in there. Obviously, some worries in terms of their first-team players, whether some of them, I think they were touching in commentary, whether some of them are sort of still recovering from having COVID, and the likes of Hingett, Brown, Akbari not starting, but did come on early in that second half to make an impact. So, look, they're an undermanned squad at the moment, Brisbane Roar, but they were taking it to Sydney FC, and they were probably even a little bit better in this game compared to the FFA Cup game. Lascano's the one I have to touch on as well. He's been a big disappointment. If I was a Roar fan, I would not want to see Lascano starting in the next game. He's worked. He works hard. He runs around. He tries to hassle defenders. But he had 2 or 3, especially in that first half, really good chances. And he had to hit the target. He was inside the box. And you bring in this new striker, this Argentine striker. He's played overseas. He's got experience overseas. If he's inside the box and he's got time and space, you have to hit the target. And on multiple occasions, he completely missed it. There was one opportunity where he just took too much time, didn't release the shot. Sydney FC's defense were able to close him down. It's not good enough from a Brisbane Roar who are a side in the past who've been so deadly in attack. Luka Vanovic, I mean, if he's fit and firing, he has to come in and start games. There was a bit of a concern around him, though. He went off late with a potential quad injury. So, what do we make of Brisbane Roar now heading into this season? I mean, are they going to? The question is that I'm thinking now is like, are they showing enough? Like, yeah, they haven't played many games, but are they showing enough to be a top 6 side come the end of the season? I'm still saying no. And look, Alex Parsons was okay in this game. Like, again, they've got like little glimpses here and there. And as I mentioned earlier, good passages of play where they're in the game and they're looking very compact, defensively looking very strong. But I don't know, dude. They're just not convincing me enough. I think what's a factor for them is that they're simply going to need more time to gel, more time to especially get this new formation down pat, to play competitive games with this new formation, give Lozano more minutes. And that's the thing. I mean, even though I said I reckon they should bench Lozano, I mean, maybe he's that kind of player where with just more time and experience and game minutes, maybe he's just going to keep improving and getting better and better and hopefully bang away some goals for them. So it's a fascinating one. And from Sydney FC point of view, I think they'll be disappointed not to win. And it's funny, I think maybe last season, the last few seasons, with their games set up like this, like 1-1, Sydney FC at home at Cogra, you'd expect them to grab a winner, to grab a couple goals late. And they did have some fantastic chances. Van der Sarg, Patrick Wood, the substitutes, fantastic chances. Weren't able to put it away. So maybe a bit of a lack of confidence as well up front for Sydney FC. I think they need someone like Lafondra to come back ASAP. Whether Bobo's going to be the answer. He came off the bench in this game as well. But for Sydney FC, they'll be disappointed that they didn't get the 3 points as well in this game, especially up against the Brisbane Roar side who aren't performing at that top level and knowing that they defeated them in the Cup during the week as well. So, 2 games, but still very interesting games, very fascinating games. A lot of talking points coming out of these 2 matches. 2 draws yet again. We haven't seen a win in the A-League men's competition for a couple of weeks now. So hopefully, fingers crossed that in the coming weeks we can get some games going ahead, dude. Of course, I can't wait for Tuesday night, the FFA Cup semi-final. I'm so keen. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing a live watch along on Tuesday night for that. Sydney FC, Central Coast Mariners, going to be a lot of fun. So that'll be an interesting thing as well, whether Sydney SC, how they will bounce back after this draw at home to Brisbane Roar, whether they'll be able to play a full strength first team squad. That'll be interesting. Hey guys, thanks for jumping into this live stream and to this review for round 10 of the A-League men's competition. If you're watching this on replay as well, we'd love to get your thoughts on the games from this weekend. What was your verdict from some of these performances? What do we learn? What players need to step up? What players impressed you this round? For me, I think Elvis Camp-Sober is probably the player of the round after this weekend. He was just super, super impressive. Have a fantastic week, guys. I'll see you on Tuesday night for the live watch-along at the FA Cup semi-final between Sydney FC and Central Coast Mariners. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you later.